We can right every wrong. Now I'd like to call for the opening remark Mr. Bobby Sista. He's the founder and executive trustee of Population First. He's one of those stalwarts who have guided Indian advertising to consistently higher standards. He has always stressed social commitments and values to build sustainable and holistic growth rather than growth based on mere financials or market shares. Mr. Bobby Sista.
Thank you for that introduction. May I add my own welcome on behalf of iCongo to all of our distinguished speakers and audience. I really must compliment Jerry and his team of beautiful ladies who are very, very hardworking, and I've seen them work, and his team of volunteers. And it is their hard work that has resulted in this assembly of this awesome galaxy of speakers that we're going to be listening to over the next 2 days. I'm not an expert on environment or climate, but just as a layman, I'd like to make a couple of observations, and I will be brief. The iCongo mandate, as we all know, is to engage and mobilize every citizen to the common man, or the person on the road, in his or her individual capacity, to do everything in their power to right such wrongs as they wish to or they are capable of. It is in the same spirit, I think, that this conclave addresses every citizen to play their part to achieve a very, very difficult and lofty ideal that the world has set for itself, which is really saving itself. My background is communications, and I'm sure I don't need to say this to the evangelists, but it is important that when we communicate with the citizen, we warn him or her about the consequences of global warming or climate change, or whatever terms we use, of how basically he and his family will be affected. There's no point in talking about larger macro issues to him. Only if we are able to communicate to him the consequences of what could happen to him and his children will he be able to get the message. And therefore, there is a huge need while communicating to them to demystify some of these issues in terms that he will understand. The other point I wish to make is that we must not allow ourselves to be influenced, or I would even say bullied, by the developed countries. We all know that they have been responsible for the present situation, and we are now being asked to rescue the world. We need to preserve a balance between our own development needs with measures to save the planet. We have our own unique problems of a burgeoning population for whom we need to conserve our resources, be it water or food. And just today, as I was coming on the flight from Bombay, there was an article in the Sunday Express by N.K. Singh, which is entitled, "Can India and China See the Future Warning?" In the context of developing countries, I think I'd like to quote one. He makes very many points, but I'd like to just quote one point. I quote here: "The challenge for all countries is to seek a transition to a more secure, lower carbon energy system without undermining development." That's the point I was also trying to make. Nowhere is this challenge tougher or of greater importance than India and China. Right. Well, that's really all I wanted to say. As I said, I'm not an expert. I am sure that the experts who are going to be speaking will address these issues. I sincerely hope that the conclave will come to a practical and wise conclusion on the way forward. And I would like to wish the conclave all success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sista. We also hope that the conclave comes to a practical conclusion. Now I'd like to call up Mrs. Amala Akineni.